going on, race fans? We got a new theme song for you, straight from the 80s. It is race weekend in the United States on the East Coast in Miami. It's Miami weekend. We got a lot to talk about. We got a lot of questions already in. So, increasingly so, the amount of questions we are getting is getting to be near overwhelming. So, we're trying to leave more and more time for QA. We will get through introductions as quickly as we can. My name is Ross. I'm the co-founder and CEO of GridRival. With me today, I have Michael Ursinoli, our CTO, Ryan Booth, Director of Business Operations, and William Laddie, our principal software engineer. A quick recap of the last race in Saudi. A very even spread of results across the salary ranges. We had exactly two drivers go up the full price, $2 million. Sainz and Hadjar both had great showings. Sainz finishing 8th, Hadjar in 10th. And then we had at the bottom Sonoda and Gasly at minus 2 million. And in between, you had a very, very even range, which I think you're going to start to see more and more throughout the season. Now that kind of the first 5-6 races are through, I think you're going to start to see a more leveling off, a more even spread of driver salaries going up and down. We had Piastri up 1.4 million, Leclerc up 1.1, Lawson up 1.1, and then you had Verstappen, Antonelli, Hulkenberg, Alonso, and Albon all up between 400 and 800,000. And then on the bottom side, you had Ocon down 1 million. Then you had Duan, Behrman, Bortoletto, Hamilton, Norris, and Russell all down between 100 and 700,000. And then the only guy who stayed flat is Lance Stroll. And as we know, at the bottom of a roller coaster, there's that flat part, right? Where it's just kind of flat. So I think that's what was happening with Lance Stroll last weekend. And I think now the stroller coaster is about to ascend. So that's something that
we're not at the flat part of the top.
We might be the flat part of the top, but I think I don't know how much more low he can get. And I say that as he did just finish in 20th position in FP1. So I think he's, he might be at the floor. But lots to debate. Start getting your questions in. Trying to leave as much time as we can for Q&A. There's already a ton of stuff coming in, so we will get to it quickly. Any topics on hand that you guys want to discuss? I think the one thing I had is last weekend we talked about Hadjar and we kind of debated, is he getting close to his ceiling? He has been the one driver that from the very get-go in the season was clearly undervalued by us and most people. And he's outperformed expectations on almost every single event except for the first one. So still going up in value. Just finished 6th place in FP1. It doesn't feel like he's at his ceiling. It feels like he is still undervalued and still has the potential to be a driver that can increase in $2 million based off go up $2 million in salary purely based off performance. You guys have any thoughts on him before I start scouring the board for some good questions?
Still bullish on Hadjar. Have been from the start of the season. This has come up in our IndyCar chats as well. Like, just trying to hit the timing and get everything right is what's key. But Hadjar is at 13 million right now. Just went up 2 million. But if you look up above him, right, there's still some question marks. Like Ocon's above him, Behrman's above him. Albon's at 16.5. So when I'm looking at Hadjar, at 13, I'm looking for him to go up 14, 15, 16 over the course of a couple of races. Will it happen back to back is the rookie question, right? But I've got Hadjar on a bunch of my lineups. Not as my talent driver though.
I like it.
Yeah, I think Hadjar is getting towards the top. That said, and we did just see Behrman have a crash in practice. Who knows if they get him ready for sprint qualifying? So, maybe there's an edge this week there. And if we look at who's ahead of Hadjar, Williams is faster than Racing Bulls. I'm comfortable saying that. Gasly might not be faster. That's jury's still out. Haas probably equal with Racing Bulls, I would say. And yeah, so Hadjar's got some tough competition to keep climbing, is what I would say about him.
Yep.
Yeah. Shout out Behrman. There's nothing that annoys me more than when we don't get like a full practice session in. You basically chuck all these results out the window because half the half the field didn't even get their runs on red. So
Yeah,
it makes it really fun to figure this out.
nifty little tip. So I actually just pulled up the practice classification from the FIA's website. There's actually a column on that where they tell you the time of day where they set the fastest time. And if you're watching the session on TV, pretty much everybody saved the red runs for the end. And some of them got the runs in, some of them didn't. Like anything like 13, 19, 13, 20 or later was probably done on reds. I wish they would just tell you the tire compounds. But yeah, so like if you were watching earlier, like it was looking like Mercedes, McLaren were the fastest, and then probably Ferrari. Red Bull struggled a little bit. This was when everybody was running on mediums. And then we saw some of the, like I said, some of the red runs towards the end where the guys who got times in were, of course, fastest, but Piastri, Leclerc, Max, Sainz, and Albon.
Shall we get into some Q&A? I think that we're going to struggle to get through all these. And by the way, y'all, as an early warning, since the show continues to grow, even though it's still a relatively small number of players, it's getting harder and harder for us to get through all of these very specific lineup questions. So we might, in coming episodes, need to be thinking about a different format. And I like the format of this first question. Who has more value upside, Yuki or Gasly? And then y'all's thoughts on constructor market outside of the top four, Yuki or Gasly? Well, Pierre went down 2 million. And I didn't necessarily feel like, in my opinion, he was at a ceiling. So, anytime you have a driver dropping the full $2 million in value, well, I don't want to say anytime, but a lot of times that can be an opportunity to pick them up. Yuki's at what, 14.9? He also dropped
So
2 million.
they went down
Both
two
dropped.
last weekend, and for the same reason, they ran into one another, which that's just like mid-pack on a tighter racetrack. This sort of stuff happens. You just hope it's not your guy that's in it, which unfortunately for a lot of us, it was at least one of our guys that was in it. I like Yuki better. I think the Red Bull is a faster car. I think Yuki is closer to Max in terms of pace than Lawson was. And
it does feel like the gap, although the gap in between the two in positions seems large, the actual price difference is not that big. We're at 14.9 versus 13.7, and I feel like it's reflective of, if you look at their 8 race average on the driver selection.
If
screen,
Yuki can finish top 10, like he should have some value gain. Like I would hope. I think this will be a down weekend for Red Bull. Well, actually, here's another thing. Max has a new 4. Yuki doesn't this weekend. So Yuki won't be quite as quick for that reason. Red Bull has struggled on street courses, so I don't love them for Miami, and I don't love them for Monaco. Imola's not a street course, so like maybe in between. Like I don't hate having Tsunoda. I'd still take him over Gasly.
Yeah, what I would say on this topic before we move on is Alpine still touch and go? Not trying to throw shade at Doohan, right? But the only true performance data we have on the Alpine vehicle is coming out of Gasly right now, because there's a pretty big gap between Gasly and Doohan in terms of race results. So, and similar thing for Tsunoda, still getting comfortable in the car. I would say though, there's a Red Bull that is talent driver eligible with Yuki at 14.9, and Yuki is a very, very seasoned driver. I would go Yuki over Gasly right now in that selection. You have a Red Bull that's talent driver eligible. I don't think you need much more reason than that.
Well, he's been talent driver eligible, and you haven't been talking about him.
Well, but he's 14.9 now, and also the crash was not. I mean, that was just a racing incident.
It does to me feel like Yuki at a loss of 2 million versus Gasly at a loss of 2 million. It feels like Yuki's the better buy of those two.
That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I agree. Yuki, I think, is the slam dunk talent driver choice this week, and the prices are. It's pretty interesting. I think we have 7 drivers within 2 million in that 14.9 to 13 range, and it's kind of like take your pick. And I think Yuki's a pretty clear pick. I know he's the most expensive one, but the price is so close to those other guys that it's worth paying a little bit extra.
Right, I agree and disagree on that.
Thoughts on constructor market outside of the top 4.
Oh, constructors.
So you got Williams, Haas, Aston Martin, Racing Bulls, Alpine, and then Kick at the bottom.
Let me do my spiel.
Give me Kick.
Yeah, Kick. So
yeah, Haas and Aston to me seem like not. They seem. I would stay away from them at the prices
If
they're at.
if you want to spend on a constructor, give me probably Williams this week, or give me Racing Bulls. Otherwise, we're just going Sauber.
mhm.
Yeah.
Now, for the listeners new, very confused on why we're all saying to sign Sauber, it's because it's a sprint weekend. On sprint weekends, constructors don't earn extra points for the sprint race; the drivers do. So it's a strategy move where if you can go cheaper constructor, a sprint race weekend is the time to do it. Go driver heavy. Constructor light. So Kick is a great pick right now. Also, Kick's times in practice might also lead to some value upside. Like we're actually just trying to minimize spend with this strategy on Kick, but it would be hysterical if you also get some value upside and decent points out of this. And math wise, you're paying 6.1 million for something between 80 and 100 points. That's like a really good points to value ratio as well for like spending that 6 million. So
I don't think that was true pace for Sauber, like based on practice placement. Like I'm pretty sure they got a. I'm pretty sure they were among the cars that got a red run in.
All right.
yes, but I also don't think I was keen to too much sandbagging except for Mercedes in
Yeah,
FP1 as well.
yeah. Like I'm still on board with Sauber just because sprint weekends. Like we can probably put together a really good driver lineup with the money savings, but yeah, I'm not optimistic that Sauber finishes anywhere other than last in fantasy points. Just to set expectations.
All right, we got a lineup question. Might have covered it actually, but we'll see. It says I have Norris, Leclerc, Signs, and Racing Bulls. Thank you for clarifying and not saying RB. By the way, if you have Red Bull or Racing Bulls on your team, let us know specifically. Don't say RB because we get confused. 30.1 million left over. Trying to figure out the best uses of that. Albon and Hadger on cooldown. Maybe Sonoda and Gasly, or try to go blue chip plus cheap. So he's got RB. So he basically has two driver spots to fill.
I'd probably go blue chip and cheap just because I think Signs you could run as talent driver.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me a Mercedes driver, and then give me the best driver you can afford from the lower tier. I I don't know off the top of my head how the math works. But,
He's got
you've got 30.
30.1.
You got 30 million. Actually, that's a problem
Yeah, it
because
is.
like Mercedes doesn't give you even enough money for Bortoletto.
Yeah.
So forget that.
No,
Maybe Antonelli. Antonelli drives a Mercedes.
yeah, but then you're still left with 9 million.
Okay, you give me Antonelli and then give me Hulk.
Mm.
Like Mercedes was looking really good on the mediums.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe they were top of the. I think they were top.
They were ahead of
1-2.
McLaren. They were ahead of McLaren on the yellows.
David Apple, in your opinion, is it better to build a team with 3 A-tier drivers with 2 budget picks, or have 2 top-tier drivers and round out the team with stronger budget options for the sprint race?
You're gonna go, William. You took a deep exhale. Do you?
No, I'm just breathing.
Okay.
That's an interesting question, actually.
Yeah. I would say this is going to be budget dependent on this question for the most part, right? But the best strategy is going to be 3 and 2, and the best constructor you could afford, if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, then
Kick.
2 and 3. It will be a better setup because the value jumps tend to happen way more in the midfield and back of field. Also, value losses with DNFs, but you're most likely to gain value running more midfielders, but you're most likely to generate consistent points from having blue chip, 3 blue chip drivers. So it really depends on what you could afford. Towards the back half of the season, I'm definitely running, Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, or Piastri, Norris, Russell for 5 race contracts, right? I'm running 3 top drivers and the best talent driver I could afford, 1 flyer, and the best constructor I could afford. Because that's when it transitions to all about points, and you hopefully have enough bank balance to afford it at that point.
Yeah, and if we look at how we score points in this game, teammate points and improvement points are a thing. Sonoda's sitting at an improvement index of 11. If Sonoda can finish like reasonably in the points, like he's going to be one of your better talent driver choices most weeks. simply because improvement points exist.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so yeah, a lot of your biggest point getters actually ends up being those like upper talent tier guys. Sometimes somebody towards the back who has a really good day because the chips fell the right way.
Yeah, if I'm building a lineup from scratch or I have a lot of positions to fill, the first thing I do is look at who I want as talent driver. So I'll usually do one talent, one blue chip, and then build from there. Some weeks it's, more top heavy. Some weeks it's more spread out. It really all just depends on what prices look like and where everybody's at. But yeah, for the most part, it's like prioritize at least one blue chip, and then prioritize your talent driver, and then build around that.
And there's a lot of great talent drivers available for Miami. You've got Albin, Sonoda, Signs, Hadjar. Like there's some good there's good price differences between them to like build a solid lineup this weekend. I like where we're at with talent driver pricing right now.
I'm going to skip forward and I'm going to come back to some of these specific lineup questions and skip forward to some ones that are a little bit more strategic. This question is probably addressed more to maybe some of our newer players, but I think it's important. Adrian asked, thoughts on running one less driver to prioritize high point scoring lineup during a sprint weekend? It's going to be a big no from all four of us. Anyone want to take that?
The answer is never to run a not full lineup. Because if you're running a not full lineup, it's even less full than it might seem because you need to have a full lineup for your talent driver to score the double points. So if I have 4 drivers instead of 5, really I have 4 drivers instead of 6 because I'm also losing that double from the talent driver. Same with leaving the constructor open. My talent driver is not going to score the double points. So the answer is never to run a not full lineup.
Alistair Grove says, does a sprint count towards a race quote on a contract? No, it doesn't. It's just part of the full event weekend as one whole contract event. Let's see. Strategy thoughts on duration of picks through to Monaco. Have a clean slate for Monaco or pick some now for 3 rounds. That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
When's the next? Is there another sprint within 5 races of now to have to consider?
I think Austria is the next one. I don't think it's that soon.
Yeah.
I think Austria is.
Austria is very far away. That's June, end of June. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's actually 5 races from now. If you sign a 5-race contract, right? Let me double check my math here. 1, 2,
Excuse
3,
me, not
4,
not
5.
Austria. Excuse me, Belgium. Belgium's the next one. That's
Oh,
at the
yeah.
end of July.
Then no, there's
My
you're
mistake.
way
Only
out.
Time.
Yeah, and then the last 3 aren't until the fall, like until they get back to America.
So contract considerations. I mean, me personally, I'm not. I mean, yeah, I'm not making any specific length choices around Monaco coming up.
I think about Monaco a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm never trying to have a full slate for a particular race, but I am thinking about
Right.
Monaco. If you think that maybe some team like, say, Red Bull maybe is not going to be as good on a street course, or if you've got a team that has some rookies or some crash-prone drivers, and Monaco has a lot of walls, and maybe that's a concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, Monaco. I'm going to so strictly base it on practice. Just
I
because
think
you finish where you qualify, and whoever
Yeah.
looks fastest in practice is who I'm going to put
exactly
on my team.
whoever's the best at qualifying, that's who I want.
Yeah.
Which that's actually the one way that things maybe go right if Max pulls another rabbit out of his hat in qualifying, like he's done a couple of times now.
Yeah, your Monaco lineup is you want it to be people who consistently make it to Q3 in quali, right? Because your quali position is plus or minus 1 position from your race finish position a lot of the times in Monaco. So how I'm approaching it I know this is very, very lightly approaching it, but I'm looking at 2 race contracts for Miami and Imola. This way I have those drivers on lockout and have some new selections I could make for Monaco. But Monaco is also very unique in terms of like probably the least amount of actual racing that occurs on a racetrack during the season. William, do you disagree?
If they're mandating a second pit stop so that hopefully you at least get some movement during a cycle of pit stops, or if a safety car comes at the right time or the wrong time, depending on who you are.
Safety cars at Monaco are very rare, if I I'm not
I think
mistaken.
there's lots
Is
of
there?
places
Is
to
there?
crash, and like
There's lots of places to class. I'm trying to think. I feel like I mean,
we have safety cars a lot more than we used to.
do we?
So,
I might lose my memory.
like
All right.
somebody hits the wall, it's going to be a full safety car almost certainly,
Yeah.
or perhaps even a red flag.
Back to the top. Thomas Davern got a lineup scenario. What do you think of Norris, Leclerc, Antonelli, Sainz doing an RB? Thomas,
Solid.
we don't know, man. You got to clarify. Just tell
That's
us
Racing
below.
Bulls.
Oh, it is.
That yeah, because he has.
Oh yeah, you couldn't
Leclerc-
afford that
Yeah.
lineup. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So that's got to be Racing Bulls. And
Okay,
yeah.
so he says I can drop Norris and Doohan with no fee. Okay,
Yeah.
so they're not locked yet, but
I
hard to
like
see better
Norris.
options.
I like Norris. And you have a Mercedes driver. You have Antonelli already. Like if we swapped Norris for say Russell, that frees up 2 million, and that doesn't actually get you even like the next driver up from Doohan. Like I would like Lawson a lot better than Doohan, but if you can't swing that, you can't swing that. And among that bottom tier, take your pick, either Doohan or Hulk would be my choices. Doohan's car is theoretically faster.
I think
That
Doohan has
said,
more
Doohan-
upside.
Yeah, he has more upside. He's also already crashed on a street course this year, which
Yeah.
is a little unfortunate.
Yeah.
All right, Ducktooth lineup: Norris 1 race, Leclerc 1 race, Hadjar 1 race, Hulkenberg 3, Racing Bulls 3. Plan is to drop Hulk and pick up Sainz plus Albon or Yuki. Out of those, who would you recommend as a talent driver? Sainz, Albon, or Yuki? That's a tough. Those are all good options.
Albon is kind of like the last guy I want to run. I think he'll, I think he's fine. I think he'll have a pretty good weekend, but I would much rather run Yuki, and he's cheaper. I think just the way the price. If they were the same price, I think it's more of a discussion, and even then, I think it's probably still Yuki. But when you're looking at, I think it's a $1.5 million cheaper. I think Yuki is a clear choice over Albon, at least for me this weekend.
Yuki has more upside, and I really don't feel like I need to have both Williams drivers.
So for what it's worth, Yuki's 8-race average is 105 points, but Albon's is 142.
But
Big
Yuki's
swing.
8-race average is going to be weird because of
Because
the
of the
team
team
change.
changes.
For
Yeah,
sure.
2 team changes.
Yeah,
For sure.
the ranking order, in my opinion, I agree. It's Yuki, Sainz, Albon, because if you're right now, there is a question of why would you take Albon when you could take Sainz? Because there's you get $3 million extra to spend elsewhere. Sainz improvement index is 14th, so he'll get some really good improvement points if he's able to keep pace with Albon. And the expectation is Sainz should be beating Albon, right? And that could happen at any point this season, but if they should be right next to each other. So if they're right next to each other, I want Sainz. Give me $3 million. Give me those improvement points, and he might outscore him in fantasy point. Sainz will outscore Albon in fantasy points if they finish 9th, 10th.
Yeah.
Any other opinions here?
Yeah, Sainz all day over Albon.
Okay. 138 asked, I got 116.3 million. I'm assuming that's bank and not team value. My team is Piastri, Leclerc, Antonelli, and Sainz as star driver. I have 27.3 in the bank, so that is value. Planning to put Yuki for 2 races, Alpine for 1. My goal is to increase team value. Alpine for 1 sounds.
I don't know that Alpine's going to be gaining you value.
Yeah.
I mean, it can, but both Pierre and Doohan lost value last race, but as a team, they lost as a team as well, didn't they?
Yeah,
They're
900.
down 900K.
I mean, look.
Well, Gasly also crashed, which is why.
Yeah, so it's definitely, it feels risky, but there's. I mean, if they both finish really well, like constructors can go up as much as 3 million in value. So to me, it seems like a gamble. And I would be looking at like where are you at in your league, how much can you roll the dice, to be honest.
I don't hate the Alpine play. I do think Gasly's undervalued, and if you are looking at the back marker cheap drivers, I mean, I think Doohan is probably the guy most likely to pull out like oh wow, he finished 12th. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not the most likely thing, but I think it's much more likely than Hulkenberg or Stroll or Bortoletto or anyone else down there. So I think he has the most upside of everybody down at the very bottom of the salary rung. But yeah, again, it's risky, but I don't mind taking risks on the cheaper drivers. Like I want the upside, and if they finish P20, then so be it.
I like Yuki for 2 races. I mean, I think Yuki's a deal right now, and then look, your decision around Alpine's really just going to come down to risk. Anytime you have a one race like that, especially on a constructor, because they can go up 3 million, but they can also drop that much. And so if Alpine has a rough race in Miami, then they get dropped off your team and you have to eat that value. So that's the only thing I'd consider. Joel Kenworth, I have 35.9 to spend in 2 drivers. I have Charles and Kimmy and Carlos already with Sauber on a 1 race contract, locked out of Alex and Jack.
Take Norris or Piastri and Bortoletto.
He's got what, 35?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have a lot at the top right now.
Yeah. If your best performing drivers is Antonelli and your best 2 performing drivers are Antonelli and Leclerc, drop fee on Leclerc is high, but
Very.
To not have a McLaren pretty much any weekend moving forward, you kind of have to be switching between, like when you're talking about contract strategy, I don't have any lineup right now where I don't have a McLaren on the lineup.
Yeah, same.
So
especially Miami. Like if your lineup doesn't have 1 McLaren, you're making a mistake.
Yeah.
So pick whichever one you want, but have at least one of the McLarens, especially for a sprint weekend. And like Mike said, every weekend moving forward, I plan on having at least 1 McLaren.
Yeah.
How do we actually feel about Ferrari this weekend?
I mean, other than their livery?
I don't feel great about it. I think maybe the racing gods are punishing them for not running red cars, but
how do they end in FP1?
And Leclerc got second because he got to run in on the softs, but they were consistently behind McLaren and Mercedes and Williams during the earlier portion of practice.
Hamilton in 13th.
Yeah, he did not get a run in.
Yeah. But even if he did, he hasn't looked that great. Yeah. I'm ready to just say Hamilton stinks, and I would never have him on a lineup. I think I'm done with the Ferrari Hamilton thing. I think he's just washed up and he's just done. He probably should just retire come summer break.
And Leclerc isn't much better this year. The car's not that great.
Yeah.
And it sounds like
Ryan's
from some of the quotes,
own,
maybe they're aiming towards 2026 and they're not putting as much effort into this year's package, which also is reasonable in the long term.
Yeah. Every team besides McLaren should punt the rest of this season. And it's dumb that they're not. Like I still think every team should purposely be running like illegal cars and getting DQ'd every single race.
At some point, they probably throw you out for bringing the sport.
You got to throw Ryan into Ryan. You got to throw Ryan in like a fill-in, race director role for a couple weeks. I think that could be fun. It's a fun spin on things. Did we answer the next question or no? I think we got distracted. Tell me if we answered this one. Declan's random voice. He says he has 109.8 in bank and locked out of. Okay, so this is someone who signed all the same race contracts. So Declan, don't do that again. But okay, he's locked out of George, Kimi, Gasly, Hadjar, Hulkenberg, and Ferrari. Obviously, going with Kick as a constructor, good call. Top driver like Lando or Oscar, both. If you're gonna sign Kick, can we fill out? Do we have time to do a whole lineup?
Well, there's only like 10 drivers to choose from with this guy, so
yeah. And you take Lando or Oscar, then that's 28.8. You're down to 81. You don't have the bank balance to have another high blue chip driver. Is he locked out?
Yuki is talent.
Yeah, Yuki for sure.
I don't love Max this week.
No.
Yeah, but he's locked out of George and Kimi.
Yeah, that's the problem. He literally can't have a driver who's going to do good. Is the problem? Like I don't have a lot of faith in Max. And he's pretty pricey. And I was just dumping all over Ferrari 2 minutes ago. So now we're into talent territory. Like maybe this is the exception. Maybe this player should actually go for a good constructor simply because he can't he can't sign a good driver, or
Yeah.
maybe you sign both McLaren drivers.
I would do that. I'd rather have both McLarens than one
that's-
McLaren and one Red Bull.
I would too if I can fit it. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
quick on the math
Well,
at
all right.
109, but
With Norris and Piastri, then you're at 52.2.
Bortoletto takes up what?
I think he's 4 million. 4 million.
So that gives you 48 left.
48.2.
Constructor, do we decide? Kick?
It's kick.
Yeah, I mean,
You have to go with
so
basement hunting here.
and then
Then you
Yuki,
have 42-1.
Yep.
Yuki, minus 14.9 Yuki.
Yeah, and then like we have a bunch of money left over.
What do we have left for two more drivers?
You've got 27.2.
Okay, so Stroll, obviously.
No, I would go. Is he locked out of Signs? Declan. Let's see. He's locked out of Hadjar and Hulk and Gasly. So
Okay.
I would go Signs at 13.2,
I like that.
and then that leaves you 14. He's locked out of Hadjar.
Signs did just go up 2 million in value, but
Yeah, I'm not worried about that though.
He also has a 109-point average. Which is
Yeah,
pretty
Sainz
good.
is on the way up. Like
Yeah, I
Sainz
agree.
struggled those first weeks. Like he had the crash in Australia, and he's still recovering value.
And yeah, so you're at 14, and you're gonna have some money left over. You can go Lawson for 11 and have 3 million in the bank, or yeah, I would do something like that. 4, 5, 6, 7, or you can come up to Hulkenberg. You could go Hulkenberg instead of Bortoletto, but I still would probably just take Bortoletto. There's more upside in case they finish close to each other. So yeah, I go Lawson for the last driver and take $3 million. You have 100. Think of it this way: you have $109 million budget, and you have 2 McLarens on your lineup. Things could be worse.
Things could be worse. Dane Geese need 2 drivers and a constructor. Piastri, Kimi, Albon currently on contract. Gasly, Hadjar, V-Carb locked out. 41 million. Piastri good. Kimi okay. Albon okay.
Yep.
So kick 41. That brings him to 37. Right?
Actually, something's telling me that this person has more team value. If they already have Piastri, Kimi, Albon currently on contract, and they have 41 left, they might not have to go to kick. You could still go to kick, but you might not have to.
2 drivers and a constructor. If we take Sauber, then you're
I'd
at
go-
35 even, and 2 drivers, and we're looking at 2 talented drivers, where we're looking at like a good one in Bortoletto. 35 million, that could get you Sonoda if you're willing to trust Red Bull on a street course. It can get you a Williams driver, Sainz namely, since you have Albon already. If you want to have both Williams drivers, maybe you don't, or you just go sign somebody like Russell and then take Bortoletto and call it a day.
Jeff Newman 01, 106.7 to spend, full driver lineup. I think we just answered this. So we don't need to go through that again. We got both McLarens, we got Kick, we got Bortoletto, we got Sonoda, and then who was the other 2 we picked?
Lawson and someone else.
Lawson and someone else. That
Yeah.
that you may be a little bit short, but you could switch that around. There's definitely enough at the bottom to fit that lineup in there. Rick Marsh, 108.5. He's got Piastri and Sainz with Williams. Locked on Russell, Hadjar, and Hulkenberg. Lots of people locked out on Hadjar this week, huh? 50 million to spend on 3 drivers. Thinking Sonoda. Think we like that. Gasly, maybe. Antonelli for points. We haven't
Mercedes
been talking.
was looking really good today.
They were. And Antonelli had a what did he finish? He was
6th
He was
last time
9.
out,
yeah.
and 9th in practice. I don't think he got a run. No, he didn't get a run on the softs. But like Mercedes was 1st and 2nd a lot of the session before the reds started to get put on. I like Mercedes.
This team is very middle heavy, but I don't necessarily know that that's a bad thing. I mean, his only kind of top tier driver is Piastri, and then I think next to that he's got
Antonelli.
So I don't know. It feels pretty good.
Yeah.
Like I think those are good choices. Sonoda, Gasly, and Antonelli. I mean, I think that we could argue there could be some other ways to structure it, but honestly, that feels like the right mix of value and points. And
Oh, and here's a,
um,
a strategy call out. You have Williams as your constructor. So that is a reason to sign Gasly over Signs right now on your lineup. Because if Gasly does well and Williams does well, you benefit across the board because you've got Williams on your constructor and Gasly on your lineup. So,
And if you take signs, you're putting all your eggs in one basket.
mhm,
It could be a really good day. It could also be a really lousy day.
mhm.
man, I wish we could see if these people are still around by the time we get to these questions. I like this one, Alexander. Better pick Max, considering he's finished behind Norris all weekend, but getting beat teammate points, or Norris, he's not beating Piastri, but finishing ahead of Max.
Norris over Max.
Norris is
and
going to be way better.
and yeah, not
Norris
particularly
won
close.
last year, didn't he?
And this was
Was he-
where it started for Norris last year.
Yeah,
In part because Max actually made a mistake last year.
that's right.
He picked up some floor damage going over the curbing too hard and hitting a bollard or something like that, and that compromised him.
Well,
And that comment too about Lando beating or Oscar beating Lando, like
That's not
I don't-
necessarily going to happen every week.
right. I'm not ready. I know Lando's been catching a lot of flack and Piastri's the hot guy right now, but I still think it's a coin flip pretty much every single weekend at this point between Lando and Oscar. I know Oscar's been better lately, but I look at it as a coin flip.
yeah,
I wonder if there's going to be any papaya rules anytime soon.
we'll see. We haven't talked about Max at all. I think
Yeah, we haven't.
we haven't. So here's what I'll say is my take specifically for Miami is I would take Max at 28.6 over Russell at 26.8. I wouldn't take Max over Piastri or Norris, but I would Russell. Sorry, did I say that right? Yeah, I wouldn't take Max over Piastri or Norris, but I would take Verstappen over Russell right now, and the Ferraris for one reason. He just had a child. Congrats to Max. Tell me, and Max is a psycho. He is going to try and win this race just to prove a point. And this is why he's the world champion is this mentality that he has. Whatever that Red Bull could put out, he is going to get every ounce out of it. The only way Max doesn't perform, here's my controversial take. The only way Max doesn't perform this weekend is if someone crashes into him. Otherwise, Max is finishing on the podium or fourth. That's what I'm saying. So he's expensive at 28.6, but he has the mentality no one else on the grid has. He's going to prove a point. He's going to win this. He's going to try and win the Miami GP sprint and race for his daughter. It's going to happen.
I would not bet against that. I'll say that.
Go ahead.
I was gonna. It's good that he's trying to win because I've heard that Lando and Oscar have come out and said that they're not trying to win. They're not trying nearly as hard as Max this weekend, so that could be an edge.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he has the car under him to win this week. I'll tell you what, though. I mean, Max's partner is the daughter of, I believe, Nelson Piquet, and so just look out in 18 years. Like you have like half Verstappen and half Piquet, and that might make for a very fast driver someday.
Let's see. I thought there was a good question. Hi, experts. Do you believe in more money on one constructor or spread it across drivers? It really depends on the type of event, but a sprint race is a special weekend because drivers get extra points on sprint weekends and constructors do not. So I think that's why if you're still here, Santhosh Suresh, you've heard us multiple times talk about having kick on your team this weekend if you have an open constructor spot to be able to optimize what drivers you can put on your team, because this is, as a sprint weekend, this is a special weekend where drivers are going to be able to earn a little bit more money. Murad Jai, is it silly to have both Mercedes drivers in your lineup?
No.
Go Antonelli Max, though.
We have two questions about improvement points. One is, where is improvement index coming from? And then general question, is the improvement index position the actual position a driver must finish in order to gain value? So it is not, the improvement index has nothing to do with a driver's value other than it adds points, and points are what What changes their value is their fantasy rank after each race. And you can see if you go into your league settings and go to scoring, there's actual section where we break down the actual math we use to rescore driver salaries. So you can literally see the formula. You can also see it on support at GridRival or support.gridrival.com. Improvement index positions is what in Formula One. What we do is we take a driver's 8 race average finish position. So if a driver's finished for the last 8 races on average 14th place, and then they finish the next race in 7th, the gap between those two is what will determine how many improvement points they get. So in Formula One specifically, it's a way of rewarding drivers, usually not in the best cars, for having an outstanding performance, because I think we'd all probably agree that call it Gasly finishing a race in 4th place is likely more of an accomplishment than Lando right now, or Piastri finishing a race in 1st. And so that's kind of how improvement points are meant to work.
Yeah, and in the early season, it won't strictly be 8 race average until we have a full 8 races.
Right.
We fill in those missing spots using an initial rank that we gave them. The improvement index reflects all that. Like, that's the number. They have to finish better than that for the improvement points to potentially start kicking in. For Lawson and Sonoda, that starts from Japan rather than Australia because they changed teams.
Let's see, back to some lineup questions. DHU says, I have Piastri, Kimi, Sainz, thinking about Hadjar and either Yuki or Gasly. I like Hadjar and Yuki. I don't know about you guys. If I go with Yuki, I'd leave no cash behind, but Gasly would leave me a little over $1 million. I don't see a reason to leave cash behind right now. Piastri,
No cash left
Kimi.
behind.
He's got Piastri, Kimi, and Sainz. That feels like a good start. Again, definitely, very weighted towards the middle. Did he say constructor? Didn't say which constructor he has. I mean, I don't think any of us could.
Team, I like it.
Yeah, I don't think any of us can say anything bad about that combination of Hadjar. And I think you've all heard us talk about Yuki and Gasly plenty of times. So we'd probably go with Yuki on that one. Let's see. Better pick, Max, considering his finish. We already asked that one. Let's see. Thoughts on you guys? Let's see. Contract length we answered. I've got Russell locked in contract. Piastri, Antonelli Sainz. This is PJ Kilgannon. Russell locked on contract. Piastri, Antonelli Sainz, Hadjar, and VCarb locked out. It's a lot of lockouts. 87. What do you reckon? For future reference, y'all, it would be great if you could just tell us what you're thinking. I think at some point with time, we're not going to be able to answer these full lineup questions.
This is like almost a full lineup, minus whoever's locked out. It's like, you don't have Piastri. Obviously, we're taking Norris, who could well win the race. You've got Russell, so we've covered another top-end driver. Now we're looking at a little bit down the order, probably Sonoda. Probably a Williams driver of your choosing, maybe Sainz, and then I don't know what that leaves you with, but we're probably taking Sauber and then the best driver we can still afford. Or if you have a bunch of money left over because of who's on lockout, maybe you have a slightly better constructor with that extra money, and then set your contract length so that you have some flexibility, as opposed to having to turn over your entire lineup on 1 week. And I do have a thought as to why everybody has Hadjar on lockout. I think everybody locks him up for 5 races back in Australia, and this is race number 6.
Mm-hmm.
Just a thought.
Probably.
Let's see. We're making good progress here. Graphitos 13. Thoughts on Sonoda for 1 race and Gasly for 3 races? Are they ready to perform and add some value? I feel like Sonoda. I mean, I'd be going longer than 1 race. What do you guys think?
I would swap that.
Yeah, I'd go.
Yeah.
Gasly. This is the same conversation we had around Alpine. I think in general, I think going Gasly 1 race could be a good pick because he just dropped $2 million. So there might be immediate upside, but there's just I feel like when I am going one race, there's two scenarios. It's one, I'm taking a big risk, or two, there's some strategic reason, and I'm only doing it with like a blue chip driver who I'm really confident is going to at least stay flat. Those are usually the scenarios that you see me do it in. So I think if you're, again, just my opinion, thinking about Gasly for a single event, you just got to know the risk. If he drops in value and drops off your lineup, you're going to lose that cash.
I've said this before. Red Bull and Street Course make me really nervous. If I'm taking Sonoda, I'm not taking him for one race. I'm taking him for two, or maybe I'm taking him for four. So if we look ahead with Miami, Street Course, Imola, not a street course, still kind of tight, but not a street course. Then Monaco, street course, Spain, traditional road course, and then Canada, basically a street course. So do with that as you may.
Yep.
I don't love one race though.
Liam Hanlon, Bortoletto, and top 3 drivers or 2 midfield drivers for a sprint weekend, say Gasly and Ocon.
I love the stack. Give me the 3 blue chips and Bortoletto. That's fun. I like that. That's a fun
it's
lineup.
Bortoletto and 1 blue chip. Bortoletto and a top 3 driver or 2 midfield drivers.
Oh, I thought.
So the funny thing is,
chat.
your 2 midfield drivers, like if they finish 11th and 12th, that would be 19 points, and that's as many points as second place pays for one driver.
Mm-hmm.
So consider that. I don't know if Ocon's going to get into any trouble for the impeding in FP1. He was called to the stewards for that. He was sort of all over the place and driving slowly, and Norris almost clobbered him. Like, probably just points on his license, if I had to guess, but who knows?
Kind of fine.
Alex Predator, Apex Predator. I've got Lando, Piastri, Sainz, and Sauber locked out. Ouch. Lando and Piastri on lockout. That's rough. I have 30 million. 30 million.
I think those are the drivers that he has, and say 30 million for 2 more drivers.
Oh, he says
That's
that.
what I'm
Oh,
taking
okay.
this.
So he says I have Lando, Piastri, Sainz, Sauber locked. So maybe
Yeah,
he's just
he
locked
needs
out of
2 more
Sauber.
drivers.
Okay.
I think he might have had a follow up here.
Going for max points. Does he? Is there one down there?
He says have Lando, Albon, Gasly signs locked. Have 32 point. You said Apex Predator, right?
Yeah.
Have 32.1 million and need 1 driver and 1 constructor.
So I think he is locked out. Or he's trying to get advice on 2 different teams.
Yeah. Okay,
sure.
so like if we need 2 drivers, if that's what we need, then we're probably looking at Antonelli and Dewin. If we're all good with our talent driver, which is Sainz is a good talent driver, you could also sort of continue down the middle, take Sonoda, and then another talent tier driver. But I think Antonelli could actually have a lot of upside this weekend. So,
there's a good question here. Do you guys ever pay to get out of a contract? Ryan, why don't you take this?
Yeah, I think I've paid a drop fee almost every week this season. If I have someone on my team that I think maybe they're not even that bad, but if I think I see someone who's better based on practice sessions, I'm just going to pull the trigger on it. I like to be aggressive with. I'm fine paying drop fees if I think I'm going to get more points out of it or potentially replace the value lost. Because like if I have someone who's I think is dead weight, it's worth paying the drop fee because you might just lose that value anyway if they have a poor race, which you probably expect them to if you're dropping them in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, don't be afraid to pay drop fees.
there's a pretty good chance I'm going to be dropping Leclerc before we hit lockdown, which is less than 2 hours from now. We lock at sprint qualifying. Reminder for everybody.
Annika Chatterson, if you are still here, can you let me know? We're going to answer your question if you're still around. Let's see. Anrox says Max can compartmentalize like no other. I think that's in agreement to your statement, Michael.
He knows what's
He
up.
can, man. The dude's incredible. So there's still rumors that he's going to be at Aston Martin next year. has been flying around.
I think he said that everyone's talking about him going to other teams except himself.
Yeah.
What,
All
what
right,
if he's
Annika's still
being
here.
might be
cautious
on the-
now?
A
Annika
sabbatical might be
says-
on the table.
We're going to help a new player. She said, I just started a new league, so I have the full amount and no one selected. Fresh team, 100 million to go. How do we help her on her first race?
That's actually fun. All right, so $100 million budget, no one locked out. So
Let's start with kick.
Yep, we're gonna start with kick.
How many races?
One race contract for kick.
Okay. Yuki?
Well, wait. No, we're also gonna probably need Bortoletto here. Only 100 million to play with. I'd rather sign Kick and Bortoletto right now and then go up from there. That's
Okay, we have 89.9 to work with for
Then we
4
get-
drivers.
okay. Norris or Piastri, either one at 28.8. Get you a blue chip driver. You got 61.1 left. Now is when I would want to think about the talent driver. Now, Sonoda's probably the best choice for talent driver, but he's also expensive at 14.9. I kind of want to go Sainz Hadjar here. 13.213. Because you could lock both of them up for longer contracts. 13.2. You're at 34.9. That's not bad. We can go back up the ladder and sign Antonelli.
Yeah, I think directionally that's the right lineup. We take our pick with our McLaren driver. We can take our pick like in the talent tier. Sonoda's a solid choice. We could also look at a Williams driver.
I think that definitely shows that, for some of these people in leagues who maybe haven't built up the value they're hoping to accumulate by now, you can still field a very competitive lineup with only 100 million.
The highest scoring lineup is not necessarily the one that spends the most money.
For sure. Did we finish? I'm scouring for the next question. So
You could scour for the next question. I could fill dead air while you're scouring for the next question.
I got one. I'm just wondering if you finished with your $100 million lineup.
I thought, did we? I think
we did.
It was either
We
that
did.
or there's one more driver missing, but we hit all the highlights that you need in that lineup for 100 million.
All right, Katie Gibson. We got 8 minutes left. 21.6 million. She needs one driver and one constructor. Hadjar and Racing Bulls locked out. 21 million. So I mean, yeah, you get a kick, and then what does that leave you? That leaves you 17.
Well, wait, who is this person? I want to look at the lineup again.
Kick and Sonoda. We don't have anything. We just have 21.6 and one driver and one constructor.
That's not enough
Hadjar and Racing
information.
Bulls locked out. I'm going Kick and Sonoda. I'm assuming. I mean, we don't know if she has them or not, but
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
Good
there's
example of how to not ask a question.
Yeah.
And that's
hey, no,
yeah,
Be
that's-
nice.
might be
I think
first
that's the
time.
best you're going to
Just
do,
trying to
assuming
help
that they're both
everybody.
available.
Yeah.
I know.
Well-
No, Racing Bulls is locked out, so Sauber's available. And if you don't have Sonoda, take Sonoda.
Mhm.
If you have Sonoda already, then we're probably looking at Signs. And if somehow we don't have Signs, then we're looking at Lawson probably.
Mm-hmm. Here's it. If general, just I'm looking at the constructor list again. We didn't tell everyone to drop Aston Martin. If you have Aston Martin as your constructor at 12.9, pay the drop fee. Pick
I
up
don't
Racing
want
Bulls.
Aston.
Pick up
I
Racing
would
Bulls. Pick up
agree.
Alpine. Pick up.
On
Yeah,
that
be the-
note, is there
If
anyone
you're the
else?
driver,
On that note, is there anyone else you think is an obvious drop?
I don't
all
know
the
if I-
Aston Martins.
Yeah.
I don't know if
everything.
I want to use the word obvious, but I hinted before, like I'm probably dropping Leclerc.
Mm,
I don't
Interesting.
like Ferrari directionally.
yeah.
I think Leclerc is kind of pricey.
It's a
And
$750,000 drop fee.
I was not impressed with Ferrari in practice. I don't think they're going to have a good week.
I would drop Hamilton too. He's looking at like probably a P20 this weekend. So I don't want Hamilton on my team. As for I stated, I think I made that pretty clear earlier. So I would drop him if I had him too.
Yeah. Yeah, the Ferraris are looking rough. The Aston Martins are looking rough right now. Behrman, we don't know where Behrman's at right now. If he's going to miss sprint qualifying or not. If you have Behrman on your lineup, I'd be refreshing Haas Twitter for an announcement of if he's going to make it in time.
Yeah, that was both the right corners that got involved in that crash, which might be a gearbox potentially. Who knows? Not to mention all the other things that were broken, and they had like 3 hours to fix it. So good luck with that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe even less, depending on how long it took to recover the car.
Yeah, Behrman's a drop, I think.
Yeah.
Oh man, we have a lot more. We're not going to get to all these. Someone wondering if they should buy Lando out for Leclerc. It's going to be a hard no, I think.
Hard
for
no.
this event.
Yeah, we're not getting rid of Lando under any circumstances. Like unless we literally can't field a full lineup otherwise, but I have a hard time envisioning how that would happen.
Young Vamp, blue chip pick Russell or Lando for long term. Definitely
Lando.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say without the rest of your team, but I just don't think you can go wrong with Lando right now, or with either McLaren. Russell May, you could argue, may have a little upside, but not. I mean, just probably not much.
He'll compete for podiums. He might win a couple of races. Lando is trying to win a championship.
That's true. Let's see. Who would you like more as a talent driver this weekend? Jamie out asks driver Sainz or Yuki.
It depends on your lineup, but those are both two great options. You could flip a coin and pick one, but I think Yuki is. I said it earlier on the stream. There's a Red Bull that is talent driver, well into talent driver territory at this point. That seems like the way to go for the most part. But the flip side is Sainz has some of the most improvement point potential to earn. So, you might end up spending on Yuki, and Sainz generates a similar amount of points and even more value increase. So, but I don't think you can go wrong with either one right now.
Yeah, Sainz also a much better bet to score teammate points than Yuki.
There's a chance.
Basically zero.
Yeah.
Let's see. We already we got that one. Oxonomy, Sauber or Alpine for one race.
If you can afford Alpine.
One race, Alpine will outscore Sauber. In terms of value, there's still the potential risk of value loss.
Yes. I guess we should have probably prefaced that. If you were working with north of 120 million right now, you don't have to go Kick. You can go Alpine. You can go Racing Bulls, and you don't need to downgrade to Kick. This is more, that advice really plays to like anyone sub 120 right now, which is probably most people. But there are a number of people 120 to 140 already, so they're not signing Kick.
Somebody asking, outside of Monaco and the sprints, are there any other weekends that we're targeting for long-term pre-planning for your lineup? I would say any street course is a consideration, like Singapore, which is down the line, Canada, which is 2 races after Monaco. There's a couple of tracks that are very horsepower heavy, Spa and most especially Monza. Mexico, the air is so thin in Mexico City that like you run Monaco wings and you get Monza downforce. So that's a consideration as well, but that's not until like ends of October. So there are some tracks that are going to be much more favorable or unfavorable to particular cars.
Yeah, I would also say the top of the blue chip drivers like Norris, Piastri, Verstappen, Russell, there is still price movement happening, but we're already going to get to their kind of normalized numbers, right? Like a DNF is going to take them down 2 million, but you're going to be looking at plus or minus a couple 100,000 each race. So right now, if I'm signing blue chip drivers, Norris, Piastri, Verstappen, Russell, I'm taking them for 4 or 5 contracts at this point. I'm taking them long, but I'm also, like I said, in case you weren't listening earlier in the stream, if I have Norris and Piastri or Norris and Russell, I'm making sure they don't get locked out at the same time, right? So if I take Norris for 5, I'll take Russell for 4, or I'll take something like that. This way, I'm not locked out of the best drivers for 2 of the best drivers for any given race.
with that, we are out of time.
Oh,
We are at
Remember
1
the
hour.
Discord. Remember the paddock.
Remember the Discord. Remember the paddock. Remember to play picks if you're in the USA. You haven't played. It's a great weekend start. I think in follow-up shows we need to do like the fresh $100 million lineup. I think that's a great way to get a lot of the most basic questions out of the way. So we'll start thinking about that for next show. If you're still here, thank you for joining us today. Enjoy the Miami Grand Prix. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful weekend. So we're excited to see what happens, and we will see you all back here before the race in Italy coming up soon. Again, thanks for joining. Like and subscribe to the channel. Find us on Discord, and we will talk soon. Thank you. All right.